Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Strange Pathways. I am your host, Scott Mort. I hope you're having a great week. I've had a pretty good week. Watched an amazing, mind-bending movie last night. Strongly suggest each one of you out there, if you like weirdness, if you like just mind fudgery, go out there and check out the movie Endless. Absolutely amazing. Just absolutely incredible movie. To give you a brief overview of the plot, two brothers who were rescued from a car accident by a UFO death cult. They're trying to make it on their own, not doing so well at it. They decide to go back to the death cult at the one brother's behest, because the brother feels like this is it. They're going to kill themselves. And he just wants that last bit of closure. Absolutely amazing. Breathtaking film. Just really good. Cannot suggest it enough. Next week, I will not be taking next week off. We're going to have some paranormal Christmas stories for you next week. It's I've found a lot of cases about something that I think you're really going to enjoy. And even if you don't celebrate Christmas, hey, happy holidays to you. I have Jewish friends, Islamic friends, Muslim friends, friends who are atheists. I hope that you're not offended by me wishing you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Because, quite honestly, I wouldn't be offended if my Jewish friends would wish me a Happy Hanukkah, or even if my atheist friends would just wish me a pleasant solstice. Napoleon Bonaparte, pretty bad hombre, a military genius, no doubt. But what isn't so well known about him, at the time he was kind of famous for interpreting his dreams, the belief in a hundreds of year old prophecy that predicted his rise and fall as Emperor of France. And he had a fondness for ghost stories as well. Napoleon himself absolutely 100% believed that he was in contact with an entity. He called this entity the Little Red Man of Destiny. Here's the twist to this, though. He's not the only person who saw this little red man. It's made itself known to a lot of personalities over 260 years of time. The first reported sighting I can find of the Little Red Man of Destiny was Catherine de' Medici. She came face to face with this Crimson Spectre during the construction of the Tuileries in 1564. She said it was a gnome dressed entirely in red. And she saw it. She saw it as a specter, an omen of bad luck. Now, maybe this was because Catherine had created a lot of tension between the Roman Catholics and the Protestants in France. And she had it in her mind that she was going to induce the king, and she did, to order the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre of the Huguenots. So, chances are, Catherine de' Medici, she was absolutely right. This was not a good omen for her. The next one to see it, Henry IV of France. When did he see it? Right before an insane schoolteacher murdered him in 1610. The next people to see it were some chambermaids. It was seen in the bed, lying down in bed, of Louis the 16th, 1792. At that time, Louis the 16th, he was trying to escape the French revolutionaries. He wouldn't make it. And he would end up quite without his head. Now, I understand you probably haven't heard of a lot of these people. I know you've heard of Marie Antoinette. Now, Marie Antoinette, she saw the Little Red Man of Destiny in Tuileries Palace, August 19th, 1792. August 10th, a mob would storm that palace and the monarchy. Antoinette did not have a good ending either. A few months later, guards would see this Little Red Man of Destiny in the prison where Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were awaiting their execution. Napoleon would first see the Little Red Man of Destiny during his Egyptian campaign of 1798. This Little Red Man, whereas he was just kind of seen in the past, this Little Red Man appears before Napoleon and makes him a bargain. According to the terms of the bargain, Napoleon would gain victory and triumph over battlefields of Europe for 10 years. This little red entity, this Little Red Man of Destiny, said, "Hey, you're not the first one. I've advised leaders of France before, and that's what you are. You are to be a leader of France. I have been by your side since you were a child, and I know you better than you know yourself." That French fleet, they haven't obeyed your orders. Now, the Egyptian campaign had begun very triumphantly right after the Battle of the Pyramids. But this Little Red Man of Destiny said, "Your operation, Napoleon, it's going to fail, and you're going to return to France, and you're going to be closed in by England, Russia, Turkey, and all the other European allies." And that all came true. Fast forward to the Battle of Wagram, 1809. Napoleon's in his headquarters in Schobrin, and the clock strikes midnight, and the Red Man appears. Now, by this time, 10 years of successful military operations, they've already happened. Napoleon looks at the Little Red Man and says, "Can I have 5 more years?" The Little Red Man says, yeah, you can. But never, ever attack Russia. Don't you do it. Do not attack Russia. Napoleon, though, in his arrogance, no one tells me what to do, Napoleon attacks Russia and suffers an amazing defeat. You hear about Napoleon's battle at Waterloo? No. Russia, where Napoleon had a physical defeat at Waterloo, Russia was an absolute disaster. This little red man, he started to become somewhat famous. All the people at Tuileries, they had heard stories of the little red man appearing to Napoleon during his stays at their palace. January 1st, 1814, the red man makes his last appearance. He appeared to the Counselor of State and demanded to see the emperor. Said it's urgently important. Now, this counselor had been given very strict orders that Napoleon be not disturbed. But something tells him, at least let Napoleon know this little red man is here. The little red man of destiny granted immediate access to Napoleon. Napoleon begged the red man for time to complete certain things. But the little red man said, 3 more months. You've got 3 months to achieve peace. Things are not going to end well for you if they don't. Napoleon tried to launch a new Eastern campaign. That's not what the little red man asked for. He asked for a general peace. France fell into the hands of the European allies. April 1st, 1814. Talleyrand in the Senate called for the emperor's abdication. Napoleon spends his final days in exile on the island of St. Helena and dies May 5th, 1821. What else is there to say? Don't make deals with phantoms. You may gain something in the short term, but in the long run, it's probably going to end badly. I remember listening to Coast AM with Art Bell and hearing the stories of the perfectly possessed that Malachi Martin would talk about. People who had sold their souls to gain success after success after success. My thought process is that if something ever came to me and offered me success and wealth in exchange for my soul, or put it on some sort of time limit, no. I mean, it's a simple thought experiment, isn't it? If something's coming to me and asking for my soul in exchange for something, then that must mean the soul exists. And if the soul does exist, and something is trying to get it from me, then the soul must have a great amount of worth. If the soul is immortal and has worth, then that means, as I believe, that there is an afterlife. An afterlife that I don't want to be a slave to something else in. If all these stories of a heaven, of a paradise, of an eternal reward are true, then these stories of entities trying to claim souls or cause chaos are true. Using backwards thinking, if one's true, then the other is true. Why would I sell my soul for an easier time here if that means I lose it in the eternity beyond? Our next tale is going to take us to April 15th, 1973, somewhere between Penn, Pennsylvania and Manor, Pennsylvania. Now this, you may not be familiar with these two small towns. In fact, these two towns are so small that a lot of people just call it Penn and Manor, Pennsylvania. If you're looking for it, look for Jeanette, Pennsylvania. That's what it's close to. More than a dozen witnesses that night reported UFOs in that area. Now, among these dozen or so witnesses was one who was driving near the Manor power plant. Now, he observed this giant glowing object above the railroad tracks and only flying it just about 10 feet above the trees. This thing was so bright that it turned the immediate area into daylight. There's two kinds of people. There's the ones that would get the heck out of there, and then there's the ones that would pull over and to get a better look. Thankfully, our witness is of the latter. He takes his car, pulls it over to the side of the road, opens the door, and gets out for that better look. Now, he looks at this object. It's bright, but he can tell it can't be more than 100 yards away from him. And it's only about 400 yards to the west of the power plant. And like I said before, 10 feet above the treetops. Now here in Pennsylvania, UFOs are pretty common. And UFOs by sources of power, be they high tension lines or power plants, extremely common. Ridiculously common. This light, it's intensely white. And even though that it's completely lit up, the witness has this feeling that it's solid. He estimates the length of about the same length as 3 cars. There's a dome-like structure on the top. And of course, it's the same bright color as the rest of the craft. As his eyes start to adjust to this bright, bright light, he sees that the main section has 2 or 3 rows of lights, or maybe they're square windows. They're kind of multicolor, but there's like one white, there's one red, the third is maybe bluish or greenish. But that's whenever he notices something. There's something outside of this craft. From the left side of this UFO, he notices a line extending 30 yards. At the end of this line is a form. Is it a being? Is it a piece of machinery? He can't tell. It's about 8 or 10 feet tall. It doesn't really kind of look human, but it does kind of appear similar to a human torso. Whenever this thing goes back into the UFO, It's not retracted in. It disappears like a string of lights. Once again, I've told you that these craft appear to be taking energy. Whenever he had gotten out of his car, the witness being the he, whenever he had gotten out of his car, he left his lights on and his engine running. 3 or 4 minutes later, the headlights dimmed, as low as a weak flashlight. But then, the craft leaves. Makes a high-pitched sound like a spinning top. You can hear the wind blowing through the trees from the air that it's displacing. The witness's headlights came back on as bright as before. It seems to me the location of the power plant, the fact that it's drawing energy from the car, seems to me like this craft was charging up. Our last tale is going to take us back to the early 1980s, somewhere in rural Pennsylvania. Now, our witness has decided to be anonymous. I do want to let you know, I got this from the wonderful phantomsandmonsters.com. I cannot praise Lon Strickler enough for the amazing work he's doing. This witness, this anonymous witness, he's really got no knowledge of Sasquatch. He's overworked. He's in graduate school and he's burned out. And emotionally, he's walking a knife's edge. At his job, he's got a managerial position. But this managerial position, he has to work 60 hours a week. Very rarely did he ever get 2 days off back to back from work. He never had that Saturday, Sunday. And because of this, he's tired. He's angry at everything. He's overworked. He's underpaid. And remember, he's working through this graduate degree, but he sees the degree as an escape. So anytime he's not working, anytime he's not attending classes, every conscious moment he's studying. Now, he falls asleep. I feel for this guy. He falls asleep with a book in his hand every night. One night, he's in bed studying. It's about 9:30 p.m. There are no neighbors in sight. Pennsylvania can be like that. Your neighbor, if you're out in the woods, your neighbor can be 5 miles away. He's in this mobile home. It's inexpensive to rent. It's just a place to live. Now, his bedroom is at the far end of the mobile home. His bedroom door is closed. The only light It's above his head, and he's propped up on a pillow. And then he hears this loud, heavy footsteps. They're coming down the corridor towards his room. The pictures on the wall are shaking. He rolls out of bed, pulls out his pistol, and kneels at one side of the bed. He's got the bed behind him, the door in front of him. And he levels that pistol at the door. Now those footsteps, they stop just outside the door. And he is scared. But he's got the gun. He's going to take out whatever comes through the door. Every once in a while, he does flick his eyes away from the door to check the clock on the nightstand. 5 minutes pass. He decides that he's going to yell. And he tells them, "Get out of my house or you're going to get shot." Maybe he threw in a little vulgarity there as well. There was no response, no sound of footsteps. Nothing. He yells it again. Nothing. He decides to stand up. Work his way through the mobile home. He's going to turn on lights. He's going to check each room, every closet. He finds nothing. He checks the doors leading to the outside. Both of them. Closed, locked. He's got no choice. He needs to go to bed. He has to work. He has to go to classes. He falls asleep with the pistol under his pillow. This repeats itself every night for weeks. There are subtle differences, though. Whatever this thing running down the hall is, it's on two legs. And then he starts to realize it's not in the hall. It's outside. It would run the length of the mobile home at the edge of the flat roof and then go. Night after night after night after night. Whatever it is running along the roof of this mobile home. No vocalizations, no grunts, no growls, no words. And he never made any attempt to see what was running on top of the roof. He's too exhausted. He's too frightened. He begins to tell a few friends about this that he really trusts, and it becomes known as the creature. I've lived in active houses with ghosts, and after a while, if it's not too violent, you do get used to it. A doorknob jiggling, footsteps going up the steps whenever no one's there, chairs rocking back and forth. These are all things that I've seen that I kind of ho-hummed at. The house that I'm in now, looks all the world like it should be haunted, but it's not. The house that I was in that was extremely active was an A-frame. And I don't know how I'd react now. If something creepy would happen, I don't know how I would react. But as time goes on, you got used to it. And so did he. In fact, he expects it. He expects it. It's almost like a nightly ritual at this point. He would speak to his friends about it. There were never any sounds. Nothing rustling through the trees. Nothing. There were never any sounds of something leaping to the ground. But over time, these footsteps became more delicate. Less vibration, less violent shaking. One of his friends, though, is super curious about this. She suggests a sleepover. I think there was probably a little something more there, quite honestly, because he talks about them snuggling up and something heavy bounds across the length of the roof. She turns her head, whispers, "The creature." That was it. Creature was on the roof. No big deal. She tells a few people, and pretty soon that circle of friends says, "Oh, wait, you know what? This guy, somebody else heard it." Some male friends of his, they get really interested, but no one wants to stay to hear this. Many, many weeks go by. And these footsteps are growing softer and lighter. They grow very, very faint. And eventually they go away completely. Whatever this was, it doesn't seem to be anything solid, a real creature. It's almost as if the stress of this man's life manifested itself in some tulpa-like fashion. And as the stress started to diminish, so did this creature. Is this some sort of late-blooming poltergeist phenomena? Is it possible that under enough stress, that under enough duress, that we manifest these things? That the one mitigating factor in almost all paranormal phenomena is that it needs a witness. So maybe we, the witness, are the ones creating the phenomenon itself. Something to think about. Do I believe it personally? No. But it is something to think about. Thank you for joining us this week on Strange Pathways. Remember, next week, even though it is Christmas, we are going to have a very special show. I've got something teed up. It's going to be fun. Do me a favor, head over to Twitter, Pathways Strange, TikTok, and Instagram, Strange Pathways Podcast. Head over to our Facebook. We'll have a few photos up this week. Not a lot. If you'd like to email me, you can reach me at strangepathwaysmail@gmail.com. Be sure, leave a review. I'd really appreciate it. It really gets the word out there. Go over to the YouTube channel, like, comment, subscribe. Tell your friends, your family about this. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. Take care of yourselves and each other.